news now. 2009, of course, has been a year with many anniversaries of major historic events. Sometimes it seemed like history was sort of repeating itself.
Other times we were surprised at how far we've come. Here's ABC's John Hendren.
10, 9, 8.
It was a year of lessons learned and relearned through anniversaries that mirrored modern times.
Happy New Year!
2009 began in economic crisis.
That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
80 years after the crash of 1929 brought a decade of turmoil and trepidation, Americans found themselves again in fear and financial ruin brought on by the excesses of the financial markets. High unemployment remains, but after a massive government spending program consciously modeled on FDR's own, economists say the Great Recession ended last summer.
The worst is definitely over.
Less than 2 years after it began.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
It was also a year to mark the 40th anniversary of a historic triumph of science. The 3 astronauts of Apollo 11 spent it in style at the White House.
The touchstone for excellence in exploration and discovery is always going to be represented by the men of Apollo 11.
In the years since Apollo 11, public support has waned. The last 3 lunar landing missions were canceled. The last mission to the moon this October was to crash into it in search of water. But still,
we rolled the dice that this country could show the world that we had the ability to do something that had been thought about for hundreds of years, but never was really attempted to be done.
It came in peace for all mankind.
Helen Savage, please call your father at the Motel Glory.
2009 was also the 40th anniversary of Woodstock, a rain-spattered failure of organization, as shown in the film Woodstock, but a triumph of music and cultural transformation.
It was the greatest event of my life. It changed me dramatically. It made me feel that I belonged for the first time.
Good evening, everyone. On this 122nd day of captivity in Iran,
as we end a year in which Americans have been held in Iran, Iraq, and Afghanistan, we remember a tactic that started 30 years ago and has become a favorite of Islamic militants. Revolutionary students stormed the American embassy in Tehran, capturing 66 American hostages.
A mat on the floor, a chair in the room. We were pawns in the pursuit of the revolution.
When it was all over, 444 days later, Jimmy Carter had lost the presidency, and radical Muslims had found a new tactic to strike fear into a superpower. This year, as President Obama made his first visit to China, the communist nation's government cracked down on any commemorations of 1989, when Chinese troops massacred unarmed students in Tiananmen Square. Across the globe in Berlin that same year, the weight of history came down.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
You notice that hole in the wall? Well, that's what's causing it.
When the wall did collapse, it marked the crumbling, too, of the repressive East German regime and a peaceful cultural and political revolution that spread to Mother Russia herself. 2009, a year in which we remembered the past with a nod to the present. John Hendren, ABC News, Washington.
It was the year of anniversaries, 40 years after the lunar landing, Woodstock, 20 years after Tiananmen Square. Makes you wonder what they'll be saying about 2009, 20, and 40 years from now.
I love these look-backs. It's always fascinating to see, because you forget sort of certain big moments.
I know.
Seeing them again is always interesting.
This year's flown by, but yet you still forget.
Well, coming up in a moment,